1 week season.
OWS fam, Sharp Football Analysis Nation. Welcome back to Searching for Ceiling. This, the very exciting Week 15 edition. Gone are bye weeks. We've got 44-year-old quarterbacks coming out of retirement that are Hall of Fame eligible, that are now potentially starting for NFL teams, who also is a grandfather. That is not hyperbole. That is what is happening in the year of our Lord 2025. So let's get into this, shall we? And before I bring in the great Rich Hribar, the state of this slate is very different than what we have seen over the past 6 to 8 weeks. We don't have the buys. We have the highest game total of the season in that Rams game in the afternoon. We've also got 3 games with a game total of 49.5 points or higher. So with that in mind, Rich, how are we doing for week 15, brother?
It's great, man. It's exciting to have this 13 game main slate that we haven't, not since the opening month of the season. And we had something that's been, and you could feel it too. Like, I'm someone that usually plays like a tight quarterback pool, like usually like 3 to 5 quarterbacks. And my initial list was like 9 guys. And I was like, oh, you feel the difference and just more viable plays on the slate. And that's what's going to make this pretty fun this weekend.
Yeah, and beyond that, like, we typically don't like to focus on the top game environment of the week on this show. This slate, though, has a very different feel in that we're probably going to need more points to ship GPPs. We're probably effectively what I'm getting at is where we have focused on the true hidden nature of these hidden ceilings, our searching for ceiling journey. That kind of, while it's still very important, it takes on a little bit less meaning on a slate like this, where I think we should start with the top expected game environments and see if there's going to be a game that we kind of had to have or you weren't winning this week. What do you say?
Yeah, that's fine to me. It does feel different though. Like you said, we kind of were like talking about last week of like, is this a week where we can keep getting away with like these cheap quarterback stacks, or do you think like the mid-range, the upper tier guys, like we're gonna have to combat? And like this one definitely feels like there's gonna be some haymakers here.
Right. And I think it starts with the morning slate, where we actually have the Bills playing out of primetime this week, which doesn't happen a lot in recent history. We've got the Bills and the Patriots in their second meeting. This game carries a game total of 49.5 points, and effectively on any main slate that Josh Allen finds himself on, like, one of the first questions that we ask ourselves is, can Super Josh appear? Against this Patriots team that's averaging 27.0 points per game, I think it's a little bit more likely. And if we look at the game logs, the Bills have effectively given up more than 24 points 4 times this season. And in 3 of those 4 games, Josh Allen returned a game that you could not win without. We're talking 47 pointers, like 38, like these were scores that you had to have. So with that in mind, do you see this as a game environment where we could see Super Josh emerge?
I mean, this is the time of the year where these conference games, these big division games. Remember, like if the Bills lose this game, they effectively lose the division. Like it's essentially
and drop to potentially the 7 seed.
So anytime we have like these types of we got to have the games for the Buffalo Bills, we tend to see the entire plane be built around, Josh, you got to get us there. And even more so, I think, than this Bills team than previous Bills teams. They've always been a team that's been built around Josh Allen, but the surrounding cast around Josh Allen feels as fragile as it's ever felt. Like Gabe Davis is out here playing. Like, it's rough. So, I mean, he has to. It's basically him and James Cook. And you saw last week they built the thing around the tight ends of the Bengals, right? It was all built around the tight ends, which made sense. And you maybe can do that against Patriots too. It's kind of like their like a little vulnerability too. But it does feel like this is one of the weaker iterations of teams built around him.
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting setup for this game, because typically we see in games the Bills can control, they're riding their run game. James Cook is averaging almost 20 carries per game this season. Josh Allen contributes 6.7 carries per game on his own right, but now we have a matchup against the Patriots where teams just can't and don't run against them. They're facing the second fewest rush attempts from opposing offenses per game this season. So is this a spot where they kind of just have to lean on Josh? And I think there is at least the potential for that answer to be yes. If we are targeting Josh, and this is something we've talked about a lot this season, is like, do we force a stacking partner with him? I don't know the answer to that this week. I mean, we have 8 skill position players, and it depends on like Joshua Palmer's status, whether I think Brandon Cooks will be active. But they're going to have 8 pass catchers. 3 of them are going to be tight ends, and 5 of them are going to be wide receivers, and they're going to rotate those guys through. Like Khalil Shakir is leading the team in route participation this week, and it's like sub 65%. So where are we going anywhere here? Or are we just kind of saying, hey, Josh, if it happens primarily through you?
Yeah, I mean, that's tended to be where I lean. I do think, like I said, Dalton Kincaid has some mild interest here just because the Patriots, they are allowing the 6th highest rate of fantasy points allowed to tight ends. Like tight ends have scored 24% of the points that they've allowed. We saw Kincaid have a 100-yard game against them in the first matchup too.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw Kincaid just kind of come back and assume his same role. We were kind of talking about last week, like even if he's limited, his role is limited. Like that's what he does.
He's going to run 55% of the snap,
right.
60% of the offensive or the routes. Like,
but in DFS, that does make it harder when you just know your guy's only out there for 50% of the snaps. It's a lot more volatility, but he's like the only guy, like I think, attached to Josh Allen that I largely have interest in, just because the receivers just it's not a spot for them. It's a mismatch. Like you're basically counting these guys that have touchdowns. It's basically, I think it's Josh Allen largely naked or with Kincaid.
On the other side of this game too, we typically look for a reason for Josh Allen to become Super Josh, which typically comes in the form of explosives or somebody doing something special on the other side. On the other side, it's like Stephon Diggs is in a route like 52% clip over the last month. Like, what are we doing here? Are there any pieces from the Patriots that we can tie to Josh Allen here?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it is kind of a wild card here just because you have 2 teams that kind of like spread the ball around. I would argue that I don't think you would give me much pushback that the Patriots guys are better than the Bills guys right now. Yeah. But they do use everyone though. They have a rotation at wide receiver, which makes it a little bit tough because a guy like Stephon Diggs has amazing peripherals this season, but he hasn't really been playing a lot of snaps, and it's been volatile week to week, like how much he's playing. Also, like Sean McDermott is like one of these coaches that does adjust for game plan, especially for when he fails with an initial game plan, which I would contend he did fail in the opening matchup. Drake May was hyper efficient in that first game. He didn't have a lot of fantasy points because he just didn't get the touchdowns. I think Ramondre had 2 1-yard touchdowns in that game. So I'm curious to see what Sean McDermott calibrates and throws at him, because one of the big things that the Patriots did in the first matchup was they consistently got Stephon Diggs on linebackers and safeties in that game. Mm-hmm. He only ran 5 routes against Christian Benford in that game. I would anticipate that Sean McDermott finds a way to get Christian Benford across from Stephon Diggs more often. It's not that Stephon Diggs can't win. I'm just talking about like how I believe that they're approaching this internally this week.
Right.
So he's an interesting spot. The running backs are a wild card, right? Because typically we talk about the Bills, you want to run on the Bills, but you want to run up the middle on the Bills, which the Patriots don't do against anyone.
Right.
And then we have the backfield rotation. Like before the bye, we saw Ramondre kind of take back over because pass protection continues to be like a thorn for Travion Henderson. So how do we want to attack like building Drake May teams? Is it inversely just the same? You play Drake May and hope he gets there, but he doesn't have the complete rushing spade that Josh Allen has.
Right. Particularly in the red zone, which is, I think, the most important thing to talk about. The other interesting aspect I think about this game that we need to work through is the first meeting between these 2 teams. They combined for 9 first half points. There were there were 3 turnovers. There were multiple drives that resulted in, they weren't 3 and outs because they gained a first down on like their first play, but it were like 4 play drives. And then we see in the second half, to start the second half, the first 5 drives went touchdown, touchdown, interception, touchdown, touchdown. So that I think highlights the complete range of outcomes for this game environment. And I think a lot of that comes down to the Patriots' ability to score when they enter the red zone. They are 25th in touchdown rate in red zone production this season. The Bills are on the opposite end of the spectrum. They are holding teams to bottom 10 red zone touchdown rates. So I think that is a very interesting crux that could kind of swing the pendulum in either direction along that massively wide range of outcomes that we saw play out in each half the first time these 2 teams met. So because of that, and because of like these teams are both very spread the wealth, I think I'm most interested in just saying if Josh Allen is pushed, and again, it could be through whatever happens from the Patriots on a very unconcentrated offense, just saying like, I'm just going to capture the upside of the game environment itself through only Josh Allen. And just saying like, if anybody's going to put the slate out of reach at quarterback, it's most likely to be him. And then I'll just kind of build the rest behind that. Any additions there or anything else to add from this game?
No, I'm pretty much lockstep with you. Like I think for May to have like a tournament worthy score on this slate, like he's got to throw, I think, potentially 4 touchdowns.
Right. And it like
rush, or they use him as a rusher. Like you said, they probably should start using him more in their lower red zone.
Yes, they've been so inefficient. There's another team we'll talk about, I think, in a little bit. The Ravens have been extremely inefficient in the red zone. We'll talk about that here shortly.
Bosa being out is a huge deal, though. We saw that last week, too.
Right. What was I going to say? There was one other point I was going to make on this game. Oh, with May. While I think a lot of people are hung up on the fact that the Patriots are still top 6 in pass rate over expectation, but it's like they're still averaging bottom 10 pure pass attempts per game. It's just like their expectation has been extremely low. To me, it's highly unlikely that we see Drake May like pass for more than 30 to 34 times. It would take a pretty severely negative game environment for that to happen. So for all those reasons, like I just prefer straight up in a vacuum Josh Allen and saying, if not Josh, then I will go somewhere else away from this game.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
All right. The next game with a high game total is the one that I teased just now with the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Last time these two teams met was just 2 short weeks ago per calendar, and the Ravens had 5 turnovers, got effectively blown out, and kept the Bengals' playoff hopes alive. I think the most interesting aspect of this game to me is that neither of these teams has been mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. The Bengals they're 3 games down for the division, but they can effectively win out and get some help along the way and still make the postseason. But both of these teams' path to the playoffs has to run through the division. Like they have a very, very low chance. The Bengals cannot get a wild card, but they have very, very low chance of hitting a wild card. So they effectively have to win this game, a division game, and that could play into that oh shit factor that I talk about so often. So with that understanding, like how are you seeing this game? Are you interested in attacking the game environment?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this game is going to play out a lot differently than Thanksgiving just because of kind of some of the wonky things that happened in that game. You know, we saw the likely fumble at the goal line. Lamar had a tuck rule fumble. He had a touchdown negated by OPI. He had another potential touchdown where Mark Andrews was completely uncovered. That was tipped at the line of scrimmage and intercepted. And the second quarter of that game in particular, going back to the Thanksgiving game, was super weird where the Ravens only had 2 possessions, the likely fumble, didn't get the ball back until 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the half. So Derrick Henry was off the field and ended up, as a byproduct, not getting a touch in the game in the second quarter of that game.
Yeah.
And only ended up with 11 touches in the game because of the way that game went at. I believe he's going to have significantly more than 11 touches in this game. Right. I would wager on that. So I think the game's going to play out a lot differently. I think the Ravens are going to have a more balanced game plan and game script and be in more neutral script, if not positive script in this game, which just makes it a completely different game environment the first time. Remember, the Bengals ran 80 offensive plays on Thanksgiving. So like a lot of the stuff, because we see T. Higgins be out, you know, people will talk about the Mitchell Tinsley target share. And it's like, well, if they don't run 80 plays, it looks a lot different on the raw counting stats as well. Although I wouldn't push back anyone punting, but I think that this sets up for a lot more Derrick Henry touches. And I think that's where you kind of start the snowball here in this game.
I think so. And digging into this game, because that was like my first inclination as well. Digging into this game, like that kind of led me to the realization that the Ravens have been so inefficient in the red zone. Derrick Henry, 47 red zone carries this year. He's averaging 2.11 yards per carry. And obviously, like that eliminates the ability to hit for explosives because you literally can't because you're in the red zone. But at the same time, 2.11 yards per carry where it matters most is not great, Bob. So, but I think I'm seeing this game. It kind of all starts with Derrick Henry with me as well, at least for the Ravens.
Yeah.
And we could go further into it. Like Zay Flowers is expected to be matched up with like one of the best up and coming perimeter corners in the league. The Bengals have increased their man coverage rates as the season has progressed. Keep going. Like Rashad Bateman was limited, added to the injury report, as was Mark Andrews on Thursday. So we got to keep an eye on those. And then it's simply a function of like, it's really just Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman as pass catchers that are playing near every down snaps for this team. Like the tight end is a rotation. They're not really running a ton of 12 personnel with both Likely and Andrews on the field. It's typically Charlie Kohler that is injected in. So these two are kind of sharing a role, about 120% snap rate combined between the two. They're not on the field together a whole lot. So there's just a lot of uncertainty with the pass catchers beyond that. On the other side of the game, we have uncertainty with T. Higgins. Now, to me, like if he really was concussed and he hit his head twice really hard on the ground last week, if he really did experience his second concussion in what was effectively 2 calendar weeks, there's no way he's playing. But then he's limited ×2 to start the week. How do you see that playing out and how that could affect the pass catchers here?
Yeah, and he didn't practice today. He wasn't there today.
Okay.
I checked before the show. Yeah. So he wasn't at practice today. So it's another kind of wrench. I think we're just going to have to wait and see. It's just going to be a wait and see through the weekend, I think.
Yeah.
If he doesn't play. But like you, like it would seem egregious if he actually had concussion-like symptoms.
Right?
And is it like, in like literally a 3-week span that he would play. So his availability does matter though, because his splits, and we saw it again last week, when he's available, Joe Burrow has just been, we have a mounting sample that when they have the full offense, like Burrow is just hyper efficient. Because in the first game, he wasn't efficient in this matchup. He just threw the ball 50 times. He was under 6 yards for pass attempt the first time his teams played. Again, they got extra possessions. So it does throw a little bit of a wrench in if he's not in the game, because if we're expecting the game them to have fewer plays and then to have an efficiency hit because T. Higgins isn't available, it does kind of put this in this, like, could this game have the explosion we want? But it also does push the target tree to largely Jamar Chase getting a lot of targets. And so you have the clear correlated mini, right? Like you have Derrick Henry and Jamar Chase. Like that's the clear, I think, starting point with this game, assuming T. Higgins is out. And then we can build around from there if you believe the game is going to pop. But I think even at its like lowest common denominator, you have that correlated mini that I think makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, and even that, we have some injury concerns with Lamar Jackson, who's been on the injury report for the greater part of the last 5 weeks for multiple different ailments. He hasn't been playing his best football. He looked a little bit better on film last week, so potentially leaving that injury stuff behind a little bit. But yeah, just a lot of uncertainty here that kind of leads to that wide range of outcomes that we talk to so frequently, which again just directs me straight to ownership. I haven't looked at ownership yet this week. I'd expect we're going to get a lot more ownership on the next game we're going to talk about compared to this one. But if that is, if we start seeing, like, for example, if we see T. Higgins ruled out, Jamar Chase is probably going to jump in ownership. That could influence some of our decision making here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's talk about that next game. The game of the season, potentially, here with the Lions traveling to the Rams. Now, this is not as big a deal when we talk about the Lions traveling. This is an indoor game over at SoFi. We have a large sample of Jared Goff indoors versus outdoors, particularly in the latter months of the season. That should not be an issue here. We get the Lions team without still Sam Laporta. We've seen Jameson Williams be more involved in the offense. We have a Lions team that is playing the second highest rate of man coverage this season, or first, depending on where you're looking at your charting. And we have some fairly significant wild splits for Puka Nacua against man. And we have a wide receiver and his teammate in Devontae Adams, who has seen 19 red zone targets against man coverage this season. So a lot of stuff to unpack there. Just giving you a wave tops. I'll throw it directly to you, Rich. What do you make of this game, man?
It's hard to stack. It's hard to stack. Everyone's expensive because now that the Lions are concentrated throughout, with the Laporta injury, Gibbs and JMO have taken steps up in the passing game. it's very hard to build like complete lineups in this game. It's more feasible through the Goff side, which I think is a little more interesting. But the Ram side is in such a favorable spot here because of the state of the Lions secondary, and we've seen McVay, especially in recent weeks, start to call his game plans based on opponent. So if you remember, like they were running a lot of the 13 personnel, then they faced the Seahawks and they kind of dial it down a little bit. Then they faced the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers came in that game without Jamel Dean, and they just went super heavy. I think the first half they had like 24 passes
straight
and
at
like 5 runs. They were just like, we're going down the field, we're throwing it at will. Last week they faced Jonathan Gannon and the Cardinals, who have a wealth of front 7 injuries at this point of the season, and they're like, we're bringing all the heavy personnel back. And we're going to run the highest rates of 13 personnel. This week, the weakness is like the Lions have one of the better front 7 still in the NFL, and they're just beat the hell on the back end. I mean, Brian Branch is now out for the year. Kirby Joseph, I saw, might play, but he's missed the last 7 games with a knee injury. Even if he does play, like, what are we expecting? Terry Arnold has been out for the season. So I believe that the Rams are going to come out with an aggressive mindset in this game against a team that's allowed the most passing yards in the NFL over the past 5 weeks. They're 30th in yards per pass attempt. You got Tutu Atwell coming back as well, which kind of facilitates putting more speed on the field and more 11 personnel. And where the Lions are vulnerable is all the stuff Stafford's good at, the under center play action passing, because they play a lot. They play an aggressive defense, right? You're going to be more susceptible to that stuff. So I think the Rams are definitely set up from a passing game stance to come out aggressive, and we know what to do. It's just that we are in a point of the season where it's really hard to build full Stafford doubles, especially if you want to bring back an Amon-Ra, Gibbs, Jalen Russell. In a world without a salary cap, I would have every player in this game. Building lineups around this game is a little tougher.
So we need to save salary. A potential option.
We're going to get some games where you can maybe do that, but
yes. From this game, what are your feelings about Colby Parkinson, who I think has scored 4 in the last 5?
Yep. Yeah, and it just comes down to, him, what does he do beyond the touchdown you get? We saw the route rate go up last week because they ran all that 13 personnel, but his previous season high, he ran around on 71% of dropbacks last week. His previous high was 52.8%. So, like, what are we getting if they reduce that 13 here, which, like I said, I believe that they actually will. What do we get beyond the touchdown?
Yeah, and a lot is kind of pointing to that reduction in 13. We have Tutu Atwell coming back. They started getting Xavier Smith in that kind of similar role, the kind of field stretcher type role. Had been kind of just relegated to special teams for much of the season until the Atwell injury. With Tutu, I mean, the per target upside is very clearly there against man coverage. Any potential to add him to a Stafford stack?
You could, and I think so. The one thing that you kind of were hinting on too is like, well, we have the Adams stuff and the touchdown stuff, but Adams has been a really weird player for DFS because like he has no like big games for all the touchdowns he scored. He actually has a 3 touchdown game this year where he has like 25 points.
Yeah.
Like, which seems like kind of hard to do. He's averaging the fewest yards per game of his career since his second season in the NFL. So I kind of say, like, to me, like if I'm building for Stafford, I think I'm just going to take Puka and say, like, even if Adams scores a touchdown or even 2, he doesn't provide a score necessary for me. And I would rather take the salary to either go up to an Amon-Ra or just down to a Jameson Williams. But like to your point, if I'm going to punt with a Rams player, I also would believe it would just be with Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, that's where I'm thinking is like he kind of brings down the composite salary required for that, kind of gets you access to this game. Obviously, one of the ways that we want to increase EV is by adding value to our primaries, which he kind of satisfies for us. On the other side of this game, I mean, it's really just 3 players, right? Anybody, any secondary options that you're picking out from the Lions?
No, not at all. So yeah, that's why I said it's a little easier to build from the Goff side because he's, obviously cheaper than Stafford. Also, we're getting the Lions as almost touchdown road dogs in a game that like literally is a must win for them. Are we getting any punts from the Lions in this game? Like they might be going for it on their own 30. Like, because the stress they might feel in this game, and Dan Campbell feeling like they just need to be aggressive and score points in this game. So I kind of like building through the Goff side from that angle, but you always have to worry about like the rushing touchdown stuff. Because he played a hyper efficient game last Thursday, but they had 4 rushing touchdowns, and like that's what you always have with the Lions. But we are facing a Rams team that, at least from like a a per touch stance have been one of the better teams at limiting running back production. That's not going to scare me off Jahmyr Gibbs at any level, but it kind of pushes me to like, is the building through Goff side like more of an angle here? Because we don't have to throw the weather stuff like you said into the mix, and building Goff, Amon-Ra, Jameson stacks are a lot more viable in terms of caps allocation than Stafford, Puka, Devonta Adams.
Right. And even considering Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, he has clear 10 target upside here in the spot. Yeah. So yeah, like, is this a spot where you'd consider like a Goff overstack, like all three of them?
Yeah, it's tough to build out the rest of your lineup. You probably can't add a Ram unless it's Atwell. He'd be the
Parkinson.
one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So you're not bringing Puka back with that at all. Like the toughest part is like we talked about like Henry and Chase having like a clearly correlated mini. Like Gibbs Puka would be a clearly correlated mini, but it's also what the most expensive running back and the most expensive receiver on the slate. So it's a little harder
on a slate where we also want to be considering Josh Allen too. So yeah, it's just
Correct.
Salary is going to be very, very tight. I think a secondary aspect of this discussion is we have a decision, I think, up at the top tier in wide receiver pricing of just purely saying JSN, Puka Nacua. So let's allow that discussion to take us over to Mr. 44-year-old starting quarterback, Philip Rivers, taking on the Seattle Seahawks on the road. What a way to come back, man. Do you see, first of all, I'll pose this question. Do we need the Colts to be competitive for JSN to go off against a defense that is going to be without their top two coverage corners? Second, is there any world where we do see the Colts put up a fight here?
The first answer, I would say no, because we've seen it all year. I mean, we literally have a player where it's uncharted territory. Like, and he's inching closer to the 4 yards per out run, arbitrary threshold here. But like no one's ever had this many yards. No one's ever been at 4 yards per out run this late in the season, like since that's existed. So from efficiency stance, and we thought a couple weeks ago, like the Colts might be a team the back half of the year we have to kind of watch against wide receivers, and it's all falling apart for them.
Yeah.
Sauce Gardner after the trade, he gets one full game in, and then he's injured, and then Charvarius Ward. We talked about the T. Higgins potentially having a second concussion in 3 weeks. Like Charvarius Ward, his third of the season, and last time he had whispered, he contemplated like retirement. So it's like he's not going to play. They actually just put him on IR, so like we don't even have to go through the motions there. So they're down their top two corners. So we're back at the front of the year where, remember when Ward was out, we were picking on the Colts in terms of targeting them for wide receiver play. So and one of the weird things too that we finally saw, I guess not weird, but like could be positive here, is the Seattle Seahawks actually let Sam Darnold throw last weekend. They finally abandoned. They were like, our running game's so bad right now.
Yeah.
Like, what if we just actually do let him throw? They finally opened it up a little bit. So maybe they did. They only threw the ball over 3% over expectations, but that's a massive shift for them. They had their highest dropback neutral script rate, highest dropback rate in neutral script of the season on Sunday. So that's a positive sign too. So I don't think JSN necessarily has to be pushed here.
Follow-on question to that discussion. With Sauce Gardner out last week, I thought, and I wrote it up this way, I thought that we would see the defense shift to a higher rate of cover 3. That did not happen. They still ran man coverage at 42.4% frequency last week. And that was kind of the signal to me, was when they went out and they traded for Sauce Gardner, they shifted away from that cover 3 heavy shell and they started playing a lot more man coverage. That continued last week without Sauce. Do we think that continues now again without another top cornerback?
I would say no. I wonder how much the weather had to do with that too, though. Like, in the rain, you're thinking like you can be a little more aggressive.
Yeah, that's a good thought I hadn't considered, to be honest. I don't know if it matters when we're just talking about JSN.
Yeah, I know.
He's been nails against cover 3. He's been nails against
everything. There's no
holes. You can't control this dude. Yeah, you can't contain him. It was just an interesting aspect, I think, of how this game sets up to where
you never know a Big Lou, man. Big Lou will keep you on your toes.
Yeah, that's what he is. He's like probably one of the most I'll say he's one of the most opponent-specific game planners on the defensive side of the ball, which kind of shocked me at the beginning of the season why we were seeing so much kind of static cover 3. Now I question, like with all the injuries, do we kind of just go back to seeing that?
Yeah.
Which again, probably it matters not, but I think is at least interesting discussion point here. If Phillip Rivers is keeping the Colts competitive, which now, again, this team has slid in the AFC playoff picture. They need to start stringing together some wins to save their sinking season, desperation mode, all these things. And then on the other side too, like we talk about the Seahawks, they are fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC. They are a half game above the Packers. They're tied with their division rivals in the Rams up there at the top. These are important games this time of year. With that said, like if the Colts are punching back, where is it likeliest to come from?
Boy. Yeah. I mean, and I go back to the end of last year too, where they were kind of just like playing Flacco for that stretch. And like, they really just, even when they were in negative game script, just handed the ball off a lot. But like, is that even a viable path here? That, you know, they're going to try, like we're going to open up here and get a lot of Jonathan Taylor touches. But we've seen now the past month, he's had 1 RB1 scoring week over the past 5 weeks. He's run to like a lot of tough opponents, but that's also what we have here. You know, you look at the Seattle, they're allowing a league low 3.6 yards per carry to running backs. They're second in explosive run rate allowed. They're only allowing 70.5 rushing yards per game. They haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher all year. So like we can't play Taylor at the salary. Where's the upside, right? Like he has to get you 30 points. And like he could get you a touchdown. Like your managed leagues and stuff, you're playing him. I get it. Like you're in this, you got to the playoffs because of him, and you're hoping he scores a touchdown like last week, but we're not getting 30 points on this slate from him. So what are we like? How do we play? How do we attack this team at all without it just knowing it's such a wild card? And I've been waiting for this to happen. I've been waiting to see how far we could push this, you know, as the, NFL has shifted to, being more of a physical traits, based, how teams are drafting quarterbacks. Post-snap creation, I should say, has become more prevalent. As teams have emphasized that, and pre and post-snap processing has become less common. We saw like Jacoby Brissett step in for Kyler Murray, and the offense gets a lift. We see Marcus Mariota keep the Commanders afloat. We've seen, the last 2 seasons from Sam Darnold. Like even Geno Smith had a little bit of period there where he looked competent. But like we're really pushing the bandwidth of like testing this out with a guy that hasn't played in 5 years, like is 44 years old. Also, Phillip Rivers, who has seen just about everything you can see on a football field. I understand this, but like he also has not played through this current defensive meta where teams are disguising everything pre and post snap. Like who's to say like he's not going to be confused a little bit? And I understand it sounds outrageous to say out loud, because from a guy that has his experience, but like there's a lot of things going on in the NFL that weren't going on in the NFL when Phillip Rivers last played. So like we're just in uncharted territory. I have no idea how to handle the Phillip Rivers thing. I honestly don't. I'm excited. I want to see what's going to happen because we're pushing this thing to the furthest degree, right? But I don't know what to expect. How does anyone?
Yeah, I mean, that's valid. That's why I kind of posed the question to you is like, dude, I don't know what's going on here. Like, is there any world?
I would just be making shit up though if I told you. Like, I don't like.
Right. And it's like mind-boggling that Phillip Rivers is eligible for the Hall of Fame this class. He has been out of the league for 5 years. He's a grandfather, 44 years old. He was asked about the state of his body. I'll phrase it like that. He was asked about the state of his body in a presser, and he's just like, I don't know, man. I've put on a few, but I can still go sling the ball. It's like, that's what it looks like, bro. But yeah, dude, I don't know. Like, it goes down to me, like, what has Phillip Rivers done in his career? Can we pull anything out of that to get any clue here where the ball is likeliest to go? And I still don't think we can narrow it down. So I'm kind of just lost.
Well, no, because the offense, I mean, I guess I can go back to like the Flacco stuff they were doing at the end of last year, but like, because I know a lot of people, I've seen this even float around. It's like, oh, Rivers loves the target as tight end. Well, yeah. He played with a bunch of tight, like he played at Antonio Gates.
Yeah.
Got targeted tight a lot. But like Tyler Warren his whole game this year has been predicated on the RPO.
Yeah.
Like all the
Undercenter
RPOs.
stuff.
So it's like that's not going to be in the offense. So it's like you can't even like it's hard to even like to you. I think the best thing you can say is like they're at least going to try to get the ball out hot. So like maybe guys like Warren and Pittman get a boost, but you still are talking about the Seattle Seahawks defense. Like they're not giving up any points to wide receivers. They are giving up some points to tight ends, but I don't know, man. I just don't know. I'm not going to play any Colts. Like if the Colts, I'll tell you this: if the Colts beat me, like if you're going to beat me in DFS this week at Colts, like I'm going to tip my hat to you. Like if you're like, I'm just gonna say you went to the uncharted waters and you came out ahead. Like
the final question that I'll pose to you is: can we play JSN and the Seattle defense together?
Yeah, I think so. Why not?
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah.
Because you could have not the Vikings game, but last week you could have.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like we probably don't need the Vikings game from the Seattle defense. Put up 19 points last week against the Falcons. And again, I think this is a team that is like they have their identity, but we've started to see cracks in that. Like you brought up, like abandoning the run game last week. Do we just see them like go into playoff mode and try and use the next 4 weeks as like their tune up for playoffs? I think that is well within the range of outcomes here. All right. We talked about those games, the top expected game environments. We had to talk about the 44-year-old quarterback coming back. Had to do it. The next game that kind of stands out to me, and I'll throw one and then I'll go to you, is this Commanders and Giants game.
Yeah.
The reason being is explosives. I've been so focused on explosives this year. Both of these teams are just giving it up, man. You have a Commanders team that is dead last in the league in yards allowed per pass attempt. You have a Giants team that is dead last in the league in explosive run rate allowed. An interesting aspect to me from this game revolves around the level of health of Chris Rodriguez. Have you seen any updates after he came back to limited session last week or
today? Today I haven't. I know he got limited, which is usually a good sign that he'll be able to play. And then Cliff Kingsbury was talking about them running the football a lot more too. So this would be a spot where they can run the football, but yeah, this one was on my list too, because I think there are a couple spots. Like if you don't get the Josh Allen 30 to 40 point game and you still want to play through Lions, Rams, and you still want to play through Ravens, Bengals, at least at the top, like this is one of the games I think stands out where you can build stacks around this game. And if it gets there, you can have Lions, Rams minis and Ravens, Bengals minis, like the core pieces that we want, and you can build around that because we've seen even the last couple weeks, like Titans, Browns, Falcons, Jets, like 2 games that you could have had for like tournament worthy scores the past 2 weeks. If you get these two teams that are evenly matched, even if they're bad teams, you still have some potential here for these games to be hot, and this is one that stands out.
Yeah, Jackson Dart on one side. On the other side, we have Terry McLaurin, who we have to. So I was hoping to see, I'll phrase it like this. I was hoping to see Terry McLaurin's snap rate jump more than 11% in his second game back. He went from 51% snap rate to 62%. But then we have to question, like everybody, all the starters kind of saw muted snap rates in a shutout game, a game they were shut out. What's interesting about that is in the last 2 games that Terry McLaurin has been back, and this is a small sample, but he's tied for the second highest targets per route run through all of that. Him coming back from injury, them getting blown out, shutout last week. So Terry McLaurin at his price, very, very intriguing to me. Very, very easy stack with Marcus Mariota. On the other side, we have Jackson Dart, who we know he has scored 7 touchdowns in 7 full starts, or 8 touchdowns in 8, something like that. I don't know how the numbers off the top of my head. And those are rushing touchdowns too. I should clarify that.
Yeah, that's the wild card about this game in general, right? Well, the Commander side is pretty, like you said, straightforward. You can play Rodriguez if he plays in this game, but Mariota, McLaurin, if you want to get to Ben Sinnott as a punt, I don't even hate it. It's like I'm not going to ever push back on anyone's punt tight end. That correlates with their stack. But when we saw the Giants last play before the bye, they were hyper conservative with Jackson Dart.
Yeah, fourth highest rush rate over expectation of any team in any game this year.
He had 0 designed runs. They were all scrambles. They were losing the game throughout and never tried to win. They just kept running, kept handing the ball off. So that throws a complete wild card like outcome, because I think he's going to be probably like the cash game quarterback this week.
Yeah.
But I actually think he's more of a tournament play because if he doesn't run, 45% of his fantasy points are from rushing. Only Justin Fields is higher. If we remove that from him, he's freaking Bryce Young. So it's
that throws deep at a higher rate.
Yeah,
well, that.
Well, no, I mean, like, yeah, he averages 12 passing points per game. It's just I say, but the matchup is there. Like, we've been attacking this. So even if he's a drop back passer, there is a path for him here. But him not rushing is just such a key component of his upside for fantasy football. And if he's not doing that, it's you can stack him. I mean, you can make a case for both wide receivers and Theo Johnson.
Yeah, we've seen this time and time again with these young mobile, I don't want to say hyper mobile, but young mobile quarterbacks, is that when they are injected into the lineup, opposing defenses don't know really how to handle them. We see them influence, obviously, after they make their first appearance, we see them start to influence opposing defensive tendencies. So if we see fewer, or like you said last week, 0, if we see fewer design runs for Jackson Dart, if we see them kind of more face up as far as the structure of their offense goes, does that influence Dart's ability to throw the football deep at a 13% frequency as he has in his rookie season? I think that's an interesting aspect of this game, knowing that the Commanders are dead last in the league in yards allowed per pass attempt. And I think that kind of influences the discussion, structurally speaking, with what we've seen from their pass catchers, primarily Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, with Dart, he has been like his just veteran outlet guy. He has been highly confined to the slot. He has seen his ADOT come below 5. And then you compare that to how he was utilized with Russell Wilson, how he was utilized with Jameis Winston. That was very, very different. So to me, it's like we can't play Wan'Dale. That kind of just leaves Theo Johnson and Darius Slayton as my 2 top targets from this offense.
Me too.
Kind of seeing the same thing.
So with Dart and Slayton on the field this year, Robinson only has 2 more targets than Slayton. He has 0.83 yards per outrun, 4.6 air yards per target. He has 140 fewer receiving yards than Darius Slayton. So I am with you of Slayton, and then Theo Johnson is just in a really good spot. Well, one, he has a 33% of Dart's end zone targets. So literally 1/3 of the time Dart's throwing the ball into the end zone, he's throwing it to Theo Johnson, which we like. We like touchdowns. And then these Washington linebackers, they're just so long in the tooth. They've just been picked on all year. And
even that, Bobby Wagner's probably not playing.
Yeah, we talk about and Frankie Louvu has been picked on. Like, Frankie Louvu is a pass rusher right now. Like, he shouldn't be covering anyone. And these linebackers have just been roasted all year. We saw it again last week. They didn't give up a ton of yards to the Vikings guys because, well, McCarthy didn't throw for a lot of yards, but all 3 touchdowns went to the tight ends. So, and Theo Johnson's an athletic tight end. People forget his athletic score and everything. So he's just a better athlete right now than anyone that's going to be guarding him. So I like Theo Johnson and I like Slayton as the partners here as well.
Back to the Commanders, not to go flippity doodah here, but back to the Commanders and the season-ending injury to Zach Ertz with his second ACL tear, potentially career ender. What a career it's been. But how does that influence this Commanders offense that very clearly has a need for that kind of interior guy? Is it just Deebo Samuel now?
That's what my initial thought is. It just helps Deebo get a little bump in that area. Like, I think they'll probably rotate. So the problem with trying to do the corollary to Ben Sinnott and the Trey McBride things. Remember, Trey McBride was a 2nd-round pick. He was in a Cliff Kingsbury offense, and Zach Ertz tore his ACL and opened the door. Like, it all has
corollaries. Yeah.
But the problem is Ben Sinnott doesn't have an NFL position. Yeah. Like, we don't he was basically like a hybrid H-back at Kansas State. They've been trying to coax him into playing. Like, they've been trying to teach him to play tight end, and I just don't know if he's ready. And John Bates is going to play as like a run guy. So again, not yucking anyone's yelling. If you're playing Mariota and you're playing a $2,700 tight end, go for it. I have no problem with it. But I have reservations that Ben Sinnott's gonna have like a huge run out here.
Also, like this team has transitioned recently to mega high rates of 12 personnel. Does that continue now without Zach Ertz? Like John Bates had been the addition to be the second tight end on the field. With that discussion and that understanding of like who Ben Sinnott is, I don't know if we see that. So does that force this team into like just saying, Debo, like I know you're long in the tooth, I know those quads don't lie, but like do we just have to like have you out there at like a 85-90% clip? I think it's very interesting here. And then it's like
Absolutely.
Chris Moore's out, Treylon Burks or Noah Brown is back. Noah Brown was a regular target of mine last season as kind of that like deep guy in this offense. There's just a lot of moving pieces here that I think you have a lot of freedom to play around with.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you can always just play McLaurin. But this game though, you can actually stack this game from both sides and have not committing a lot of salary allocation to anything. And then you can play a Jahmyr Gibbs. You can play a Puka Nacua. You know, this is what makes this game exciting. You do have to avoid the Josh Allen haymaker though. And a couple of these spots because we need these quarterbacks to put up viable scores.
Well, that's also an interesting aspect of the discussion we had with Josh Allen is you can play Josh Allen with the like a 2x2 or even more from this game. And saying
that's
like
true. That's a great angle. Yeah, actually didn't really think about that because we think about playing like Darius Slayton. And if you're like, oh, if I'm playing Darius Slayton and Theo Johnson, I need Dart. But what if it's just Josh Allen plus those guys?
Yeah, I mean, if Josh Allen puts up a 40 burger, it's not going to matter what Dart, his 28 pointer. Yeah, that's an interesting angle that I was working through this morning. I like it. All right, anything else to add from this game? Oh, I guess I teased it earlier. The situation with Chris Rodriguez, I think, is very, very important. If Chris Rodriguez is out, the team kind of just has to go back to Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. And if they have to go back to Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, if we look at the underlying metrics comparing Chris Rodriguez to Bill, they're kind of flat. They're very, very similar from how they are used as far as where their runs are coming, from their efficiency in those. It kind of just came down to like Bill had 2 fumbles in week 5 and 6, and then we started seeing Chris Rodriguez, I think. Because like Chris Rodriguez is not blowing Bill out of the water as far as efficiency metrics go. That's important, I think, because the Giants are dead last in yards allowed per carry. They're dead last in explosive run rate allowed. This is a spot where like, if it's just a 2-headed backfield and we know it's important because we know who Jeremy McNichols
they don't hand off to him.
They don't. He's just like that, the like only clear passing situation 2 minute offense type guy. So if we do get Chris Rodriguez out, I am highly interested in Bill at only 4,400 from this game.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
All right. Over to you now. That's my game that's most interesting to me outside the top 3. What about you? I know that was probably yours as well, but
I would echo that too. The only other one I would say, if you're trying to do the thing where we talked about, if your lineup approach is pay down for a game environment and then try to hope that hits, and then we're trying to use that as access to like the bigger stacks, would be kind of Panther Saints. And I know they didn't score a lot of points the first time that they played, but it's indoors. Remember, this is another cold weather slate, which we're not scared of at all. But it's one of these things where we're getting an indoor game. We've seen the Panthers play in a couple games recently where they're 59 points with the Rams, 57 points with the Falcons. So like maybe that's one, because I do think that, especially with Tyler Shuck getting these designed runs now, he becomes interesting, like a Shuck, Juwan Johnson, something around those lines, Chris Olave, Tedero McMillan, if you've got a Panthers running back of choice. But that's another game that does say like, all right, this one could get us to the other pieces we want to, just not as fun as Giants Commanders.
Yeah. So what are you seeing from that spot? Anybody that stands out to you?
And I guess I should have mentioned, Devin Neal, I guess, could be brought in those two as like a volume-based play, as a pivot from Woody Marks, who's going to end up being popular at basically the same price point, who's in a better spot. So, yeah, to me, Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson like definitely stand out from like a matchup stance. Well, and like Shuck's 4,900 and has been running. And he's been running in the lower red zone, which again, maybe Drake May should do some of that. But we've seen Chris Olave, the single high cover 3 stuff with Tyler Shuck. Like, he is throwing the ball at Chris Olave at just an immensely high rate. And then Carolina, we know third highest static cover 3 defense. They do try to mix up and disguise it, but they always end up in cover 3.
Yeah.
But they're 26 in points allowed to wide receiver 1 targets. And then they are also just, they get killed by tight ends. So something like Shuck, Juwan Johnson, Olave stands out, and then you can get, do your Gibbs stuff or Puka and stuff like that. So that's just another one to kind of to throw in there as like, we want to build around it. But I will say the pivots, if you have Lions and you're sitting on that game, to me, the clear pivot is 49ers passing game.
Yes. Let's talk about that real quick. We have some time. I was going to talk about like Rico Dowdle and Chuba stuff, but this is much more fun. Let's talk about the 49ers. We're seeing obviously the field overemphasizing Christian McCaffrey, which makes sense, right? The most consistent fantasy producer at the running back position this season, and it makes sense. What do we do about a potential pivot? Is it Juwan Jennings? Is it Ricky Pearsall? Is it our big daddy George Kittle? What are you seeing here?
Yeah, Kittle is the standout, but I do want to bring up that the Tennessee Titans have low-key turned into a pass funnel. I don't know if anyone's really noticed because they're season-long metrics, but they have allowed the fewest yards per carry to running back since week 9 in the NFL. And this is how Shedeur Sanders throws for 370 yards against you. But they've allowed 7 straight quarterback 1 scoring weeks. And again, 30 capped off by this 33.5 point game to Shedeur Sanders. But Davis Mills had a QB1 game against them. They're forcing teams to throw. And remember, they've lost all their cornerbacks since the start of the season. L'Jarius Sneed's out. They traded McCreary. They traded another guy earlier in the season too. I forget his name. But like, they're deep into the bag cornerbacks, and they're getting absolutely flooded by the passing game right now. They are now 31st in completion rate on throws allowed more than 10 yards downfield. They're allowing the highest yards per pass attempt on those throws, 29th in touchdown rate. They are a bad pressure team, even though for being good at stopping the run over that span. And they've been absolutely getting killed by tight ends and wide receivers because of this. So Purdy, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle, obviously. And then, like, you brought up his name. The bummer is Pearsall's price makes no damn sense. And this is a problem, I think, with all DFS sites, is they're slow to raise the price on players that are clearly getting jammed into lineups and being played, like a Michael Wilson, for example. But then when players underperform, they're slow to lower their prices. So, like, to me, Ricky Pearsall should be a $4,400 wide receiver.
Very Slate range.
And he's 5,100 because of how he was being played earlier in the season. But if there were to be a spot for Ricky Pearsall, because he's on the field a ton, even since he's come back, 85% route participation or higher all 3 games. We just haven't seen him earn targets when the 49ers have everyone. But this would be a spot because the Titans are getting killed downfield, like I mentioned, and especially by wide receivers. So this would be a spot where I think he was going to be one of my hidden hammers, but you brought him up.
Yeah.
But I do have a problem with his pricing on both sides.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wasn't going to mention Ricky Pearsall as a hidden hammer because my certainty in that role isn't quite there. But like, yeah, I'm not going to push back at all. Pearsall kind of was circling the drain for me as like a potential cheap guy that has clear upside. And then obviously, like, Brock Purdy kind of gets lumped into that equation as well. We haven't seen it this season as far as like true ceiling is concerned. A season high 23.7 fantasy points. But again, in this matchup with the Titans being much better against the run, it does open the door. Again, similar discussion to Purdy or to Pearsall. I wish it was priced a little cheaper, dude. 6,200. Like, to me, I'm just like, oh man, that is so close to like Stafford. I could just go there. So it becomes a more difficult click. But yeah, as far as the Tennessee Titans, do you force a bring back? Are you going to DK? Are you going to Iomanor? What are we doing on the other side?
I mean, DK is the stand. I don't think you need to bring it back. Like DK would be the stand-up. I mean, the 49ers been crushed by slot receivers the entire season. He's like a 70% slot rate since week 9. You do get the explosives with him too. If you can have, he has the potential. He's like their only guy on offense to turn. Well, I shouldn't say it because Tony Pollard just had a 65-yard touchdown.
Yeah, right.
We're not gonna go. We're not gonna chase that one.
100-yard 2-touchdown game.
I don't think
nowhere.
He would be a guy that I think if you were forcing one, he'd be the only guy that stands out. I think for me.
All right, I dig it. Let's move over to Hidden Hammers. Sorry for stealing the Pearsall Thunder there. What else you got?
I don't know if we don't want to call it Thunder.
What else you got, man? Talk to me.
Yeah, I had Slayton on the short list. I also had the Saints guys with Juwan Johnson that we kind of got to talk to. The only other guys that I would say, like, who else do we even have? Do I even have another good one? Those were all the good ones that I think.
Yeah.
Do you have one? I'll see if I can pull one out of the hat here. You hit me with one while I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, Bill was the big one for me.
Yeah.
If obviously the asterisk there, if we get Rodriguez out, I haven't seen anybody talking about Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara. Everybody is just so sour on this run game, but like when you get bad against bad, like good things can happen. And this is one of those spots I think where good things can happen. Bill already has a 30-pointer to his ledger this season. Think if dude at 4,400, he's a hard player not to click on a slate where we're talking about JSN, Puka, Josh Allen, all these guys we want to be jamming in. So he would be my primary guy. And again, comes with the asterisk. We gotta wait on Rodriguez. But yeah, I was gonna mention DK. We kind of talked about him. I'll continue digging here as you go.
No, the only other guy I had was that's probably gonna not get the love that he deserves based on the matchup is CJ Stroud, like Stroud Nico stuff. Who you probably could even play with Woody Marks because the Texans have their highest implied team total of the season against this Arizona team that is just down bad in terms of injuries again this week. Max Melton's already been ruled out. They're down to, Paris Johnson's going to be out. This is a team just finishing the season at this point. So Stroud, Nico Collins, Woody Marks. I don't think Woody Marks is going to be popular, but Stroud's, I don't think, not going to be played particularly on this slate.
Yeah, and I think an interesting angle to take is playing those two together too. If you want to still play Marks but get exposure, because we've seen multiple receiving scores from him this season. Yeah, man, that's pretty much all I got. I don't see anything else that really stands out to me. Any game environment that we did not you want to touch on quickly, or you just want to get out of here?
No, we kind of touched upon everything. Like I said, we're trying to find ways to get to some of those core pieces like Puka Nacua, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase. So I think we covered enough, at least like potential builds, at least to get people kickstarted and play their own plays around it.
Yes, do that. Do that. Please take what we're saying and go build, think for yourself. And that's the best way to be contrarian, is just do it on your own. All right, y'all. He is Rich. You can find him over at Sharp Football Analysis. I am Hilow over at 1 Week Season. This is a fun slate. Get ready to at least focus your builds around upside, because we're going to need it this week, I think. Until next week, y'all. See you at the top of the leaderboards. Peace.
1 Week Season.